So during the pandemic, I wrote a book called Becoming Agile. People who are neurodivergent love to take responsibility for their own learning. So making some of the activities visual, making some of the activities about listening, incorporating creativity, allowing time for reflection and self-guided work and independent work. Also for some people with, I've noticed, especially the autistic spectrum, being on a camera with the camera switched on for hours at a time is exhausting.
From the city of Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, England, I would like to introduce you to Paddy Danda.
As the world becomes more automated and the robots take over, it's imperative that we build the right human skills for the future. So pull up a chair, grab a samosa or two, and make yourself very uncomfortable. Dear friend, thank you so much for joining us today on the Superpower School podcast. I'm your host, Paddy Danda, and on this episode, I have a good friend of mine who we've crossed paths once again. I had her on my previous podcast, and I have to say it's probably the most listened to episode ever on that podcast. And I was just explaining to her moments ago just how many downloads it had. Let's just say it was a few thousand. And so she absolutely is phenomenal when it comes to podcasting. And I want to welcome Laura Ray Turner to the show today. Hey, Laura, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm really well, thank you. This is such a nice thing to do on a Friday afternoon. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. And I was commenting on the new look, or at least it looks new for me because I haven't seen you like this before. So yeah, you're looking amazing, by the way. Yeah, glowing.
Gosh, I'll take it. You can say that all you want, Patty. Brilliant.
Now you know my secret, how I get guests onto the show. I just flatter them with compliments. But no, I really do genuinely mean it. And Laura, which superpower you bring into this particular episode?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of reflecting lately over the last year or so on neurodivergence, my family history, and traits that various people have displayed over the years, and then ways that my brain might be changing now that I'm in my 50s, and perhaps I have a little bit more self-awareness than I used to. Hopefully I'm a better coach, so I have better self-awareness. And I really think that I've picked up some of the ADHD traits from my father's side of my family. I'm just noticing it more, whether it's expressing itself more or I've just taken notice. I'm not really sure, but I see it as a superpower. And I know we'll talk about all those various traits and what I've noticed because it's different from person to person. But that I've finally come to terms with the fact that that's a superpower for me.
Oh, brilliant. I love that. I've actually had somebody else who was diagnosed with ADHD, and they actually, there's two guests I had on the same episode. They were business analysts, and they were about to do a talk at a conference, and it was all about that angle of when we're communicating, are we communicating for everybody? So people that are neurodivergent as well. That was really, really insightful. So I know we're going to take a slightly different angle today on that. So that's going to be super interesting. And Laura, for people that don't know you, tell us who you are. What do you generally do?
Yeah, generally. Well, I guess the most concise label I've managed to find for myself is I'm a coach, trainer, and facilitator with 30 years of experience in the tech sector. And I coach individuals at every stage of their career. So I love to work with new managers as well as senior leaders. And I love working with teams as well. And I have a real passion for facilitation. Facilitation in the context of training, facilitation in the context of strategy events, all kinds of facilitation. Really passionate about that.
Oh, brilliant. And that's actually a passion of mine as well. I love being able to facilitate those conversations and just surround myself by lots of people. Always magical to see when a group of people, they see a transformation or they go through a transformation as a group, which is always phenomenal to watch. And I mean, I know you best of all for your agile coaching, and you wrote a couple of courses as well when you and
Wow.
I were working together as well. So
Yeah.
that's what I remember you for. But you then went on to write a book as well, didn't you? What
Yeah.
was that about?
Yeah. It was so nice to be invited to speak at your last podcast, and I'm really surprised at the thousands of hits that that episode got, which is incredible. Yeah. So during the pandemic, I wrote a book called Becoming Agile. I'm really proud of it because it was hard, a hard piece of work. Um, it started as taking the findings from my research from my master's degree in executive coaching, which I finished in 2018. And I happened to meet an editor from Open University Press at like a coaching CPD event. And she said, "Oh, we really want a book on that." So, all right, what do you say? Yes, yes, and yes. And it just happened that the work to write the book fell at the same time as the pandemic happened. And lots of people I know went out and looked for projects like that to do. This just happened to come at the right time. And I wasn't aware of my own neurodivergence back then, but in hindsight, it all makes so much sense because here I am in my fantastic little office, and I really appreciate this space. But sitting in this chair for hours to do the work was excruciating. And now, in hindsight, I realize it's that people with ADHD, and I don't have a diagnosis, but so I will say that. Really have a hard time focusing, settling. I've always had a hard time with fidgeting. As we speak, I'm fidgeting with my phone and a pen and my AirPods case on the desk. And it would have been really hard for me if it wasn't for Pomodoro technique, working in tiny little time boxes, kind of, taking the lessons from agile software development, working in iterations to create that focus and goal-oriented work, and then reward yourself with a break. So I'm happy I kind of used my own tools, as it were, to write the book about business agility. But I also learned a lot about myself at the time. And in hindsight, it all makes sense. It really all makes sense. Yeah. So that's probably a longer answer than you were looking for about the book, but it's also interesting in terms of a superpower, right? That as soon as I was able to create the focus and I started to get into the work, I was working through the dings on the app. Like I was actually working straight through. And this is something that people who have those ADHD traits really identify with. Once you're stuck in, you could sit here for 2 hours uninterrupted. Yeah, I'm really happy I wrote the book. And I wish more people would write reviews for me on Amazon. So there's a shameless plug to go write reviews for me on Amazon. That would really help.
Oh, no, definitely. So we'll include the link for the book in the show notes as well. So if anybody wants to check it out, please do. It's awesome. And like I said, it generates so much interest in terms of the episode. What were some of the big kind of takeaways from the book for somebody who's interested in reading it? Like, what were some of the aha moments that you thought people would really value from the book?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I suppose I use the book all the time. I'm kind of looking at it on my shelf. I use it all the time, as a kind of a reference book for things. Oh, what was that tool? Or, what was the thing to use in that instance where a team or an individual is struggling with that sort of issue? So for me, it's a really good reference book. But the thing I keep coming back to over and over and over again is this thing about the macro system around an organization or a business, and how these external factors in the external business environment, the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental, pestle, those factors have quite a bit of influence, more than we think, on people's behaviors and the leadership style, all of those things. And when I'm trying to have empathy with a struggle that my client is having, and sometimes when they're lobbing things at me, misdirected frustration about something in the organization. It really helps me get perspective on unique challenges that people are experiencing in an organization, even if they may not be aware of the source of some of their frustration.
Yeah, I love that because Pestal's a framework that I was using as a business analyst, and that was one of the first techniques that we were taught. And it felt like, oh, it's a bit old school now, and we've got all these other new cool techniques. We've got all these canvases you can use and all of this good stuff. When actually, those techniques are really good, and we should never forget that. There's always some great tools that we can use from the past that are really great. And so I'm glad you kind of brought that up, because I just hear a lot of people talking about like this canvas I've designed for this thing and that thing. And I'm like, but is it that great? Right? Because I don't think often these canvases have the thought process that's been put into some of these, I'm not going to call them historic tools, but these more traditional tools that we had, right?
Okay,
'Cause there's probably like bags of research and stuff that people have done to create those.
yeah, well, the fact that we're still talking about some of these tools decades after they were created is something. The fact that we remember them. So yeah, and I think we both seen agilists who in the past have thrown away everything that's come before and chasing the new stuff. When actually not everything about project management was bad. Not everything about some of the tools and SWOT analysis and that kind of stuff was bad. I think as facilitators, we can support the groups that we work with in more meaning making, right? So they do a SWOT analysis. How do they create a common understanding of the situation from that? How do they synthesize that into 2 or 3 prioritized points, that they're going to take forward? So as facilitators, we love to talk about tools because they're handy. But how do we support our groups in using those? I've used McKinsey 7S, which is 50 years old. It was created in 1980. Yeah, long time ago. And I think it's brilliant for getting a holistic view of a situation, especially some kind of system, a team or an organizational system. I've also used it with individuals to create a more holistic picture of how they view their team or organization. And, just because something's old doesn't mean it's bad.
I was going to move over to some facilitation stuff. You
Mm,
mentioned you've been doing facilitation recently, and also you've been working with a well-known brand,
yeah,
PwC, I think you
yeah,
mentioned.
yeah.
I'd love to hear some of your experiences there, and how did your neurodivergent aspect of your personality, how did that impact the work that you did there?
Yeah. Oh, what a good question. I can't tell enough people about the work I did at PwC. I decided to go get a full-time job after the pandemic. I missed working with lots and lots of people. I was kind of starving for that extrovert part of me to be satisfied after the pandemic. And so I interviewed for this job as a facilitator. Um, Collaboration designer was my title, but I ended up doing a lot of designing as well as facilitating. And the method that they use, as well as some of the other big consulting firms, is called MG Taylor. It stands for Matt and Gail Taylor, a husband and wife team that created this method, again, 40, 50 years ago. Again, so that one's really old as well. And the husband and wife team was very forward thinking, very holistically minded. One of them was in education, the other one was an architect. And they really wanted to change organizations and the world of work and how people solve the big, messy problems. Well, a lot of the consultancies today, including PwC and Ernst & Young and some of the others, Capgemini, all use this method. And when I started working at PwC in 2023, it really started a real deep dive immersive experience into learning the whole method. I got trained on it. We lived and breathed it at every level. And it was just such a fantastic experience to dig into clients' big, messy problems using the method, design a half-day or multi-day workshop to support them in getting to the bottom of a new technology strategy or increasing collaboration and getting people back to the office. And I just loved it. The work was so, so, so exciting. And again, with the neurodivergence, in hindsight, when I had a tough day, I turned up to work and I dug in even harder to the work. If there was something that needed to be solved, I couldn't wait to get my teeth stuck into it. But the day-to-day politics and mucky-muck just wore me down to a little stub, and yeah, that's kind of consistent with a lot of the other things that I'm seeing about me and the way I like to. And when I was facilitating and I had a group to work with, um, it just created this wonderful virtuous cycle of energy, of me giving off energy and seeing how it impacted people. And my line manager one day said to me, that she caught a glimpse of me facilitating that day with my co-facilitator, Lloyd Bitter, who's an amazing facilitator. And my line manager said to me that day, "You look radiant in there." So I've been lucky enough to have people give me that feedback about what I'm doing well and not so well. And yeah, and the creativity. This is the other thing I'm really learning about people with ADHD. If I have it, I need to just reiterate that I've not had a diagnosis because my local NHS health center isn't taking new inquiries. They've been bombarded with people, about my age in their 50s saying, I wonder if I have ADHD, and they're just not taking any more inquiries on that. But one of the things I'm learning is that we like to be really creative. We like to find creative solutions to problems. We love to paint and draw and make art. And that's something that's really come to the fore for me in the last year and a half. And, when I was at PwC, I had a chance to work with this co-facilitator, Lloyd Bitter, who would be the very first person to say, yeah, I'm definitely also neurodivergent. And the two of us just got on like a house on fire. Because we loved the thrill of the unknown, of opening an event for the day and, what's going to happen, trying new things, practicing new tools and designing new games together. I mean, it was just one of those great partnerships like Lennon and McCartney that, doesn't come along all the time and eventually, has its lifetime. And I'll always remember how generative that experience was. And hopefully the client benefited from that relationship as well. But we created a game, as part of the MG Taylor toolkit. It's called Masterpiece, but we did all the work to decide what the artwork was going to be for our participants to create that day, and the materials, and facilitating it and tailoring it to the group, and thinking on our feet to, keep it interesting in the moment. So, I mean, it's just looking back, there were no accidents, right? All of those things are about, enjoying that spontaneity and putting yourself in those situations where you have that thrill of having to think on your feet. So yeah, it was all there. It was all there. Yeah, a lot of fun.
And you mentioned there about energy. You said, I felt a similar energy, because I'm always puzzled by energy. I always feel it as well when I meet somebody for the first time and I'm like, oh, that person's really positive. I felt that positive energy from them, or, oh, there's that negative energy. What is energy? Like, because is it there or is it just our perception? Well, what's your view on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we can create it and take it away. Again, one of the things that we really focused on a lot in these fantastic facilitated events when I was at PwC was about how to create an energetic environment by the way that people arrive, getting people to engage in some activity that's creative as soon as they walk through the door, the way tables and other physical objects are distributed around the room to create an open space for people, toys and games and certain kinds of books that were creative, kind of distributed around the room to create that kind of feeling of, hey, this is a place where I can play and be creative and think outside the box. It's definitely something that you create. And I notice it when I work with groups that, sometimes people will say to me, this didn't feel like a slog at all. This was a lot of fun. I still teach Agile project management, by the way, through a friend's company, through TCC training. And I absolutely love the guys who work there. They just have the right values, and it's a family-run business. And, so I don't have to do any selling there. I just rock up and deliver the course, and I'm happy to do it for them. About one time a month, maybe once every 2 months, I do it. And I'm going on 10 years of delivering that course. And that all started at QA. And I just love doing it. But as you know, some of those courses are just slide after slide of text bullets and boring, boring, boring. And the last time I delivered that course, one of the participants said to me, I didn't find this a slog at all. I found this really refreshing and energizing. And I just thought, thank God. But I'm finding that some of the things that I need from a training course or any event where I'm sitting here in front of a camera, I'm trying to kind of eat my own dog food and bring those things into facilitated events. I don't expect people to sit there and listen to me reading slides, for 45 minutes.
I hear you. I absolutely hear you, Laura. You know me, I'm a massive fan of bringing in play and some of those unconventional approaches. I think it just reminded me of a story where I used to work for Deutsche Bank before my current job. And I remember I approached our graduate recruitment team and I said, could you show me the activities that you require new graduates to go through? So the assessment center that they put them through. And they started showing me like these off-the-shelf activities they had brought in from an external company. And it was kind of boring. They were like given these challenges of, you are the CEO of a bank and you've got to now make certain decisions and you've got to work as a team and this, that, the other. And I was like, what if we flipped this? What if we changed it completely? And they gave me permission to design something. And they were going to then review it and validate whether it was the right thing. And what I designed it was in line with some of the agile activities we sometimes see where you're building a city out of Lego. And there's a whole activity around visioning the city, creating a vision, being really strategic about where you want this city to go in the future. And then they get to actually build it in teams. So they do a lot of the agile kind of work. Long story short, the assessment that I created, we assess them on agile values or agile competencies, you could say. So how collaborative is the person? How much value did they deliver? Like it's all of the agile stuff, because that's what the organization wanted people to be doing anyway. So I thought, well, why are we measuring people that way at the start? And I have to say, Laura, it was amazing creating that, but then for the team to actually put it in. And it became the standard approach to assess new technology graduates. And I think we had over 400 grads that were recruited that year who all went through that. And I remember one of them, as they left the room, I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, can I ask you a question? How did you find that? And they turned around and they said, that's the first assessment day where I didn't feel like I was being assessed and I could be myself. And it goes back to your point, right? Like you mentioned there, even like in a training course, you're often sat there bored out of your brains. But then for somebody to turn around and say, that was so cool. I didn't feel like it was a slog. It's amazing. And I think for any facilitator, that's music to their ears.
I know. And some trainers just didn't really help us, Patty. They kind of ruined it for us. And some people really had terrible experiences with training, but I think you and I are on a mission to change that, for everybody. So that's wonderful. I love hearing those examples. That's wonderful.
Oh, and if you were then giving somebody some advice who is, say, a facilitator out there, and well, actually to me, because I'm probably the perfect, you could say, example of this. Like, I'm aware of neurodiversity, but I can't say I've implemented any strategies to make sure I cater for everybody's needs in that respect, because I just don't know. So what advice would you have for someone like me who does facilitate a lot and may not always appreciate all of the things that I should be thinking about when I'm designing a workshop, when I'm incorporating those activities? You mentioned there are a few things about, you love to fidget with things, you love to play with things. And so could you give me some advice?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I would say the fidgeting is more an involuntary thing than loving to fidget. But I love to do things that are self-directed. And anytime you can get a group to engage in self-directed learning within parameters, and understanding what the outcome should be that they're aiming for in terms of a learning outcome. People who are neurodivergent love to take responsibility for their own learning. And I would say that's a great starter. But some of the kind of advice for really good facilitated events and training are also just really good advice for people who are neurodivergent. So making some of the activities visual, making some of the activities about listening, incorporating creativity, allowing time for reflection, and self-guided work, and independent work. Also for some people with, I've noticed, especially the autistic spectrum, being on a camera with the camera switched on for hours at a time is exhausting. And I've noticed this a little bit with myself when I'm a participant. Sometimes just knowing that people are staring at you all day and having to have that facial expression that is always mirroring people and showing the right kinds of emotional intelligence. And for people who find masking exhausting, sometimes when I'm listening, you've probably noticed this about me. In fact, in the past, I can have a very serious face. I can have a very stern face when I'm listening and evaluating something and taking it in, and kind of listening in the way that I'm incorporating the new material into my own mental model of something, right? And that can be really off-putting for people. So to make sure that when I'm with groups and I don't give off that kind of off-putting, kind of serious, stern face when I'm doing that learning, I've learned how to look at my video image, when I'm teaching on Zoom or Teams or something, and I find that level of self-awareness that I need to have utterly exhausting. And a lot of people call it masking. So that you're doing and saying and giving off the right, nonverbal expressions that neurotypical people expect, so that you don't offend those people. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things there. This learning design, which if you're designing for all of those modes of learning, visual, kinesthetic, auditory, all those things, you're probably doing a good service to the neurodivergent people. But also being aware that many people find working in groups and being attentive for hours at a time utterly exhausting, and really struggle with having the video on all day. I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, I recently did a talk about the differences between virtual and in-person collaboration. And a good friend of mine, Grant, and I did this. It was a bit of a fun session. So we called it Collaboration Mania, but it was like us dressed up as boxers. And I was championing in-person sort of collaboration. He was championing virtual. And we were just putting forward our different arguments to be a bit provocative and see who would win. And we got the crowd to vote. But there's a study that we came across that talked about Zoom fatigue, which is something that you mentioned there, on a video conference call, it can be really tiring sometimes. And some of the things that we found on there, one was Zoom fatigue. It's made up of like 4 key factors, according to this study. And one of them is around the excessive amounts of close-up eye contact. So if you imagine when we're in a natural setting, we're not like this close to each other. So right now we're probably in our sort of intimate zone. And if you're in that space for like an hour, that's really intense, isn't it? So that's just one example. One of the ones I loved was reflection. So when you see a reflection of yourself on the screen, which we see now because we can see ourselves, we're much more critical of ourselves, which then apparently leads to increases in stress as well. So it's a bit like having a mirror and looking at yourself all day. And of course, we're going to go, oh my God, you're terrible, or this, or that. We're going to criticize ourselves. The other one is around movement. So when we're not able to move freely and move around the room, that can obviously cause us a lot of discomfort. And then finally is the cognitive overload. So because in a natural face-to-face setting, we can pick up so many cues in terms of body language and things like that. Whereas on a Zoom call, you've got to really focus in and go, did I pick up the right cue there? Did that person really mean that in a positive way? Again, there's more cognitive overloads. Yeah, I just found it fascinating that we talk about fatigue, but it's often difficult to break that down and say, well, what are those factors? And then this study I came across was really great. It really did break that down for us. And then the last point on that is a lady called Vanessa Van Edwards. You mentioned, I don't know if it's your resting face you were talking about.
Yeah, that one,
yeah, she talks a lot about like our resting face and how that's the way people perceive us based on like that natural expression when we're resting. And mine's terrible as well. Like I actually had footage or a photo of me, and my daughter's taken it of me just out of the blue. And I've looked at it and gone, my God, do I look miserable? I would never come up and talk to that guy. Like, why would you come and talk to him? I always look really angry as well. Like, I think that's what you mentioned. So got to work on my resting as well, I think.
Yeah. And maybe some of that is being a little bit too self-conscious. And maybe some of it is real. It's hard to know unless you ask people for feedback. Yeah. And it's all really interesting, isn't it? Just the way that we've worked as facilitators and trainers and coaches has changed so much. Working online. It's, I don't know, I'm desperate for a return to in-person work. I also work with some friends who used to work at QA who have a great business called Learning Solutions Matter. And one of their key clients is a technology-led company in the travel industry. And I'm not sure I'm allowed to name drop, but they have an office here in the UK. And I went to deliver a half-day problem-solving workshop for some of their graduates and apprentices as part of that program. And first of all, I love working with young people, and just to be in person with them and just to get that energy going was like a dream. Here I am in a room when people are about to arrive, and I can actually shake their hand. Yes. And it was absolutely brilliant, and I missed it. I missed it so much.
Oh, love that.
I don't know how long we have together, but actually, because I was thinking about creativity and the visual arts and stuff, I actually pulled out a couple of sketchbooks and some works that maybe I can show off a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. So anyone watching on video will be able to see this. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Cool. And please don't feel like you have to say, oh, that's really nice, because some people, you don't have to. It's okay if you don't like it. I like it. So I've just actually the office window here faces east, and over the winter when the sun was really low, there were these clouds, and I just thought, oh man, I gotta stop working, down tools, and get my sketchbook out. And I liked how this turned out. It was like a really low sun with the clouds streaking across the sky, just out here, just at my
Oh
window.
my God, that's really good. And I'm not just saying that. That looks so
I,
cool. Oh,
I know. And that kind of grainy sky with like a lot of like atmosphere. Yeah. So I'm happy with that one. Happy
I
with
love
that.
that. And the fact that the sun's right in the middle of the page, right? It sort of illuminates everything. It's so
Yeah.
great the way you've done that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Illuminating is what I was going for. So brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also have this A4 sketchbook on really nice drawing paper, and I'm just enjoying the texture of the paper. And I got this really cheap fountain pen, and I've been utterly addicted to this. And this is just a tree from a stately home at Waddesdon Manor here in England. And
Wow.
yeah, so some mixed media, colored pencil, charcoal pencil, watercolor, and the fountain pen. Just really enjoyed doing that.
That's amazing. I love the way the tree trunk and the branches really are in focus, and then the leaves in the background, they're almost a little bit blurred. It's almost that effect you get with the camera, right? When you have that portrait effect and you're able to get that focus in on the object that's the nearest to you. That looks
Yeah,
so good.
yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to emphasize the textures in the bark. I really like
Mm.
texture. I like textures a lot. And then just one more thing is this painting I just finished yesterday. It's watercolor, and it's a
Wow.
hibiscus flower.
Yeah.
My husband likes
Oh,
it. My husband likes it a lot. So when
that's
my
beautiful.
husband is
Yeah.
saying, yeah, it's working, then I know it's got some.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Really good.
Yeah, thanks.
Really good.
That's something I'm enjoying a lot. I like that kind of flow state. I like having something that I can be a geek about, and kind of satisfy that, again, that kind of ADHD hyperfocus, and being able to learn everything about paint and paper and making my own sketchbooks now. And that kind of satisfies that like hyper focus, wanting to drill down into something and know everything about something. Um, yeah. Anyway, there you go.
Oh my God. That's the whole side I've never seen yours before. So thank you for sharing that. I know
Uh,
it's something very personal sometimes, right? When you create something or you draw something and there's this maybe, I guess, barrier sometimes because you don't want someone to judge what you've created. And so there can be a reluctance to show things. But oh my God, that was amazing. Brilliant. Love that.
Thank you.
And Laura, you mentioned this is something you've recently pursued as a passion. So what happened before that? All these years before that? Why didn't you pursue it then? What was holding you back?
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, wow. I actually found watercolor painting and drawing and sketching when I was in my 20s. And just for people who have any doubt as to just how long ago that was, I'm 53 now, so it was a good 25 years. I was living in San Francisco, and I noticed an advert for a watercolor painting class on a Saturday at San Francisco State University. And I rocked up and I did the class, and the teacher was fantastic, a guy named Robert Dvorak, who can really draw. He was a former architect, and now he teaches, and he's just phenomenal, artist. And anyway, he announced he was taking a group of people to France, to the south of France, to go, to follow in the steps of all the, Matisse and Cezanne and Renoir, and all the people who had their studios down there, but also to do 2 weeks of watercolor painting. And so I went. Somehow I found the money to go because I was working in a nonprofit at the time. And the people I met on that trip became like a second family to me. And I still, have those friends, and they're still like family to me. And we kept on painting and drawing together for many, many years. When I moved to the UK, in 2001, it all kind of stopped because the kind of shock of moving here and adjusting to life here and needing to take my job seriously. And then the disruption of the kind of collapse of the first wave of .com businesses, which affected me as well. Being here on a work permit at the time, I'm a citizen now, but at the time it was very, very disruptive for me. And the kind of painting and drawing came to a halt. I tried to pick it up again, bring the sketchbook away on holiday with me, but it never really came back again. And then a year and a half ago, my mother passed away. And I took some time off from work. And as you know, as many people who've lost a parent will say to you, they end up sketching or drawing or doing photography or something to take their mind off things. And here I was, here in my office, and I pulled out a storage box, literally from underneath my desk. What's this? My old watercolor palette, my old brushes, and so that got me started on getting back in the groove of things. But I have an art mentor now, a great artist in the U.S. named Cindy Briggs, and because she teaches from the U.S., the sessions end up being in the evening for me here in the UK, and so it works out well with my my job, my coaching work. She's really helped me push myself forward and really challenged me. I meet in a group with her, a small group of people, and we're all looking to challenge and push ourselves. And I learn from all of them, and we all give each other feedback all the time. So that's really helped me push on. And then because so much of our work is here at home, done virtually, I needed to find things to do where I actually get out and see human beings. So now I go out with the Urban Sketchers in London. I go out with the London plein air painters. There's a lot of kind of traditional oil painters there, but I take my watercolor kit along. And it's just been such a huge, satisfying source of creativity. Been really brilliant, actually. And artists are mad in a really great way, and so much fun to be around. So yeah, it's been incredible.
Oh, what a great story. I love that fact that you just open up the drawer and all of a sudden it was right there in front of you, those materials and the tools that you were once using as a youngster. So amazing. This is my penultimate question, so yeah. I have another one after this. So we're in an age right now where things are very uncertain. We have AI that's here and now, and it's only going to get more and more intelligent and faster and going to be able to do all sorts of things. I mean, OpenAI just announced a new feature on ChatGPT, which is probably one of the best image generators that have ever been produced. And now you can have the perfect writing in your visual, whereas before it was a bit flaky, wasn't it? Every time you wanted some words in there, it was all misspelt and things like that. So if somebody's starting their career or they're at that early stage of their career, looking back on your own experience, could you give us a couple of pieces of advice that you would give somebody who's starting off in tech and is a little bit uncertain about the future, with all of this stuff going on? What would you say to them?
Oh, wow. Just starting in tech, that's a good question, because I'd had that experience with working with the travel company recently, and also I got to be a mentor and a dragon for a nationwide competition among colleges, like a business skills program, and that was based at Aylesbury College here in Buckinghamshire. I just did that a few weeks ago, and so that was also kind of working with young people. What would I say? I would say critical thinking skills have always been important, but are going to be even more important with so much misinformation. So with the social media platforms and the amount of, intentional disinformation in many cases, but, partial information, partial picture, influencing kind of behavior that isn't always designed to help people's, general knowledge, but often only designed to help, the privileged few. those critical thinking skills are even more important. I mean, I use generative AI tools to do research and support me writing blogs just like anybody else. But I find that I have to change about 20% of the content of what's generated, either to make it more relevant to my audience or to correct mistakes or to check sources or change some of the absurd flowery language that comes out. That just not taking things at face value, thinking critically is going to be much, much more important. And that's for everybody. That's not just the people going into tech, is it?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it is really scary at the moment, the sort of things that people are putting out online. And I'm looking at my own kids and I think just never take anything for face value, because there could be so much of that's misinformation and fake, as you mentioned there. But thank you so much for that, Laura. And my final question, a fun question.
Yeah.
I didn't give you any warning of this one. So I normally end the show with this question. If you could have any superpower in the world to abolish something in the world of work, so you've got complete control, what would that be? And because we're agile, we're going to do this for a short iteration. We're going to do it for one day and see how it goes. So what would that be for you?
Okay, so to abolish something from the world of work, take it out, or
Yep.
Right. Okay, so I have a superpower where I can take away anything.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Would you like a serious answer or a fun answer?
I'll take any. Fun would be good.
The first thing that comes to mind is bad coffee. And that's one of the best things about working from home, is having my coffee exactly the way I like it.
What's your definition of a good coffee then? What is that? Like, explain it to us, Laura.
Yeah. Well, something about this size. See how it's not quite a full mug, and actually probably even 2/3 of that. Something sort of espresso strength with a little extra shot of water, kind of like a strong Americano, with a little bit of milk is my way to go, definitely.
You wouldn't have to be from America, would you? Like, because you guys are like really on it when it comes to coffee. I just know Americans are very particular about coffee. I don't know why that is, but yeah.
Yeah, I used to live in San Francisco. We had a huge coffee house culture, and coffee was very important. Very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. All right. Bad coffee, everybody. We're going to get rid of it. None of those cheap machines where you press the button and they just spit out all sorts of junk, don't they? Yeah. None of that. What was your serious answer? You said you had a serious one.
Oh, do you know what? I've been watching Severance, and it's brought up all kinds of themes about the boring, staid corporate culture. I was really looking forward to season 2. I renewed my Apple Plus subscription to watch it. It's just finished, and now I'm watching it all from the beginning again for the second time to pick up on the things that I missed. And there's so many metaphors about how people really feel about being in those sterile offices, and just some of the things. Oh, if you've not seen it, the perks, the waffle parties, and the finger toys, and all these stupid things that used to pass as a line manager giving you feedback for a job well done, so you can continue to do the things that are working well. I think to answer that question, I'm going to recommend everybody goes and watches Severance, because it's just so incredibly well done. And for an American program to have such brilliant, dry humor is impressive as well, because of course the British are the kings of that. So yeah, there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there.
Do you know, I started watching it. We watched a couple of episodes and I don't think my wife quite got it. And she was like, don't want to watch this anymore. And then one of her friends recently told her like how good it is. And now she's saying to me, we need to watch it. And I'm like, yeah, I told you, everybody's talking about it. So yeah, I'm going to use this episode as another prompt to make sure we watch it. But no, brilliant. Well, Laura, if people want to get in touch with you and find out about the great work you're doing, or if they interested in your facilitation services or coaching services, how can they do that?
Yeah, I should have this written down on a Post-it, so I'll do that really quickly while I'm talking. It's futurefocuscoaching.org. Write it down.
Futurefocuscoaching.org. Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I was going to write it down on a Post-it, but it's not going to happen. You'll put it in the show notes.
I was going to say, you need a big Post-it for that one of those wide ones.
I know. Can't we just go for like a 3-letter acronym domain name?
One of those.
I know. I've got a great case study on the website that really goes into more depth on the work that I delivered with Lloyd when we were at PwC. So there's a great case study on there. And then my newsletters are averaging about once a quarter. I only like to send them out when I really have something to send. Otherwise, it's just junk for people's inboxes. And all of that is there, case studies and articles.
Oh, brilliant. And we will include those links in the show notes. So thank you so much, Laura. It's been such a pleasure of reconnecting and having this conversation. I feel like it's been a very different side of you that I've seen today. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And I'll talk to you soon about the sketchnoting conference. That's something I would really like to do. Yeah.
Awesome. There, you've plugged it for me. So awesome. Hey, folks, we're doing the International Sketchnote Camp on the 4th of July to the 6th of July. So if you're interested in sketchnoting, visual thinking, visual facilitation, visual coaching, all of those things, then please join us. It's going to be in Birmingham, my home city, and it's going to run over 2.5 days, and it's going to be epic. We've got so many great guests lined up. So again, I'm sure you'll find the link somewhere in the show notes on that one as well. So and I look forward to talking to Laura more about that offline. So thank you so much.
Yeah, same here. Thank you.
It's the end of another episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please do connect with me via LinkedIn and drop me a message and let me know your favorite takeaways from the episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Superpower School newsletter so that you can be notified of all future episodes. Simply visit the website www.superpowers.school. Thank you once again.